Hello YouTube, Coach Rachel here once again to do another shoe review for you guys. In front of you, this is the Nike Zoomfly Vapor Next Percent 3. It just dropped a few weeks ago in the United States. It's been out in Europe just a little bit longer. I think it hit the UK first. Well, anyway, I got my hands on some, and so I wanted to just kind of go through a review for you guys. What I think of the shoe and a few tech specs. So we'll start with the tech specs, then we'll talk about the outside of the shoe, then we'll kind of go into the inside of the shoe a little bit, and then I put it through a test through a half marathon, and we'll go through that step by step. So with the tech specs, for the men's size 9, it is 6.5 ounces, and then for the women's size 8, it's 5.6 ounces. So there's a little bit of a weight reduction as compared to the Next Percent 2, and then just a little bit more of a weight reduction yet again from the Vaporfly 2. And I think a lot of people are kind of curious as to where does this shoe fit in the new release of shoes compared to like maybe even Saucony or New Balance, or how they compare to other models of Nike racing shoes, namely the Next Percent 2s and the Vaporfly 2s. So looking on the outside here, it's very apparent that there's been a redesign in this mesh. If I just stick my hand in there and wiggle it about, you can see the color of my fingers through the mesh. It was very breathable. So just as like a weather highlight for the test parameters for the shoe, it was 70 degrees at the start of this race and 90% humidity. So the breathability really was tested and it passed. It's this upper was very breathable, yet it held its consistency. I didn't have any issue with the laces kind of just starting to come loose. I think if anyone's running in a humid environment, or God forbid their shoe gets wet while they're out there running, they'll notice that the laces will just come loose a little bit. This upper will just get a little stretchy, and then kind of that nice snug fit that you want through the upper kind of just relaxes a little bit, and you might even have to retie your shoe. That did not happen, and I felt like I was sweating pretty good through the shoe. But the breathability is on point, a good design upgrade there. The foam, they kept the stack height kind of in the similar realm. It's 38 millimeters in the rear and 30 millimeters in the front, rendering an 8 millimeter heel-to-toe drop. They've changed a little bit of the outer too. The rubber's not more, not less. It's just a little bit different in design. And coupled with this foam, it's a very soft ride. Now some people, I've seen pictures, although I've tried to refrain from looking at too many reviews. I don't want to bias myself while I get on here, but I did come across a few pictures, and people are worried about the wear here. If you're heel striking a lot, you're going to wear this out pretty quickly. Does it affect the constitution of the entire shoe? Probably not. But do be cognizant of that. The shoe really is built more substantially for that midfoot to forefoot strike. Now back to the foam. It's very, very, very soft. I think it would be slightly more comfortable in those marathon distances as compared to the Next Percent 2, but also give the snappiness that the Next Percent 2 has that some people may not experience in the Vaporflies. So some people might make a compromise in using the Vaporfly 2 for their marathon and maybe the Next Percent 2 for their half marathon. And this shoe, I think by and large, was trying to meet in the middle of keeping something very light and nimble, but then switching over to the sustainability of the foam over the distance. There's a big difference between running in a shoe 90 minutes to 2 hours versus 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Big difference. So they definitely kept the foam soft, and I don't feel like there's any engineering issues in the foam that would keep it from lasting at least comparable to its predecessor models. Now people argue how long should a carbon shoe last, and some people think racing 100 miles is fine in it. Some people think it should go 200 miles. So to me, that's kind of subjective, and that's up to you. Cost per dollar, mileage per dollar rather. So, but looking at the back to the part up here, I think what the tread rather in this forefoot area, I really think going through corners that helped a bit. Even though I've never been one to have any issues with the Next Percents going through sharp corners, this shoe did grip well, and if I was cornering one way, I didn't feel like the foam was pushing me the other, basically being sloppy because of the softness, the durometer score, if you will, of the shoe. So that was another plus to this shoe. I think they've lightened it up and made it more nimble. Next feature about this outer just general design, I do feel that it is more stable in that slightly more rear foot to midfoot section of the shoe. Some people might, when they land, you might even see it, their foot will just kind of wobble a little bit, and pronate or supinate rather. And that can become an issue for some folks. I feel like there's a little bit more stability in this shoe. As you roll through that gait cycle, you'll have a little bit less lateral play in the shoe. That's not saying that it's a stability shoe, of course, that this is still very much a neutral shoe. So if you have significant stability needs, then this probably would not be a shoe for you. Shoe width, let's go up to the top of the shoe now. As we talked about earlier, the mesh, wonderful. They didn't make it too much more narrow or anything like that, but I feel like almost on the cusp of being a little bit narrow as compared to the Vaporfly 2. That being said, it was not an issue for me, and I have an average width foot. They kind of bubbled it out here just a little bit, so you don't pinch that pinky toe. I think that's been something that maybe, I don't know if people have been talking about it a lot, but I think some people have been getting their pinky toes pinched in, not just Nike, but just in general, like just a little bit of pressure on there and other manufacturers, and I think they're starting to respond to that, because obviously feedback's important to any company that you're going to purchase your shoes from. So they've kind of just bubbled this out ever slightly. I enjoyed it. I thought that was nice, and my feet did not hurt at the conclusion of my run. So I think that's another good selling point to the shoe. Now inside they retained the same little foam piece here that kind of cups around the Achilles nicely. So it's able to secure your heel into this heel counter. Add a little bit of stiffness and support to it, just enough to give you a little bit of stability through there, but certainly not pinching on the tendon in any way. You do not want your tendon to actually be compressed. You just want something slightly snug holding the heel into its heel counter. The tongue, gusseted completely. It's not touching at all. And very, very light, as if I'll put my hand back up in there again. As you can see from the mesh here to the tongue, very, very breathable through there. The tongue cushioning is very, very minimal. However, was not an issue at all. I wore feature socks, or I wear Swift. That's the other brand I wear. Those are the two socks. Both fit fine in the shoe. They do cut out a little notch there, because that's obviously where some of the tendons run and then kind of go up into that crease of your ankle, and you do not want to compress those. So they did a good job there taking that out and giving you a little bit of flexing room so the tongue doesn't move around either, because you do not want any creasing, pinching, pushing, blistering, etc. Now, as for the ride, I think we've kind of just naturally covered some of that as I go through the topic of the shoes. Oh, before I do move on to that, the laces are largely unchanged. Very nice lacing here. I didn't even have to sweat it. I don't have to ever think about having to retie my Nike shoes, to be honest with you. Love the lace. Now on to the ride characteristics. Since it was pretty warm and I'm in fairly high mileage, I didn't race these shoes all out at a pace I would do marathon at, except for the end. Probably about the last 2K, I was very close to 6-minute pace, whereas I was about 6:30 pace for most of the effort. So up-tempo into threshold, essentially. And when I was doing the up-tempo type miles, I felt like my feet were protected on the hot asphalt. And the gait cycle was smooth and comfortable, as if I was going to be running a marathon. I don't know if I was expecting more pop in the shoe as relative to fast pace, or was my ability to interpret that a little bit compromised because of the weather conditions. However, when I did finally decide to get moving on to the finish line of the race and kind of get close to what my dream goal marathon pace is, I never felt the poppiness to the shoe, but the shoe just managed to do it and just speed up in a very subtle way. So I think people just expect this boing, boing, boing feature, and you have to do a little bit of the work to experience some of that reward. So I felt like as I put the effort in, the shoe returned that energy efficiency to me. And I wonder if Nike just toned that down a little bit, that pop, pop, pop feel that maybe some of the next percent ones or twos, or felt like just in favor of a smooth ride, because you don't want any sudden movements, whether that be a crazy pace change when you're just trying to go steady in a long effort, and you don't want any sensational changes in your gait cycle. So I wonder if they just decided smooth and steady wins the race. and they just tried to think about how can we lighten the shoe up as much as possible, get it to ride as comfortable as the Vaporfly 2 in the distance sense, but give everybody that nice nimble feel that the Next Percent had. And I do feel like at the end of the day, they succeeded in doing that. So while it wasn't like this weird magical shoe to me, maybe I'm also spoiled because of all the plated shoes I've gotten to run in from Nike and other manufacturers that were just, there's no wow happening in the market like in 2018, 2019 when these plated racers were for sale to the common runner. So with that being said, is it worth your money? If you really are looking for the compromise between the Next Percent 2 and the Vaporfly 2, yes, go ahead and shell out the money. Now, with that being said, if you are on a budget constraint and you can find the Next Percent 2s on sale, and you haven't had too many stability issues with that Next Percent 2, I'd say just stick to those. Honestly, at the end of the day, all these shoes coming out are wonderful. Find the one that fits your foot well. Is the one that you feel comfortable in, the one that you've been able to at least do some efforts in, and the one maybe that you can afford. That's going to be your best bet to get to the start line. I would not say ruin your race mentally because you maybe didn't get the exact pair of shoes you wanted, or you're stressing about the latest and the greatest. Remember, if you try to get these and you can't, and you have a pair of Next Percent 2s, they will take care of your needs, absolutely. So will the Vaporfly 1s, Next Percent 1s, and as far as going back, saying other manufacturers, in another video, I am going to compare this to the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. I don't have a pair of the Elites yet. Obviously, if something changes and I do have a pair of those, I would love it. Because so far, I could see it being a Saucony versus Nike battle with both pairs of shoes. And why I say that is just because there are two different gait cycle. I think that is going to be from the Saucony, meaning like the toe off being more aggressive in the Elites versus the Pro 3s, and I think that should be discussed, but we're going to do that in a whole different video. If you have run in these and you have any other feedback or anything else that you would like to share with the running community, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions or comments for me or anything else that I could maybe comment further, please interact in the comments. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd be much obliged. I would like to continue making some of these videos for everybody on the YouTube community. Meanwhile, for the last few months I have been uploading. Thank you everyone for your support. This has been very fun for me, very enjoyable. And my new intro, definitely I am enjoying. My good friend Farrell, who's one of the local running community members, somehow I was able to film that on his phone and sent that over to me as it was running alongside me, and it was just ended up being great footage, and with his kindness and permission I can use that as my intro now. Until next time, you all take care.